Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our cybersecurity webinar series. And I'm your host for today. Our speakers on cybersecurity, we have Echem, who is a cybersecurity associate of Taxtech Technologies. He's studying cybersecurity from prestigious Caleb University, and he will be speaking on social engineering attacks. I also have on the call Lekan Adesina, who is a cybersecurity specialist of Taxtech Technologies. And he will be speaking on recognizing and reporting phishing, multi-factor authentication, password best practices, and password management, and mobile device security. Leko Adesina is a devoted computer enthusiast, and he has expertise in computer security, network operations, and system administration. He studied computer science from the prestigious Yaba College of Technology, and his professional journey has been marked by substantial roles in various organizations. As Tax said, he serves as our team lead and our cybersecurity specialist, where he takes lead in safeguarding critical systems and from a broad spectrum of threats. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Henry, who will be speaking first on social engineering attacks.
Thank you, Timile. Good morning, everyone. I hope you all can hear me clearly. Please, can you all hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So while I share my screen, can everyone see my screen? Can everyone see my screen?
Not yet.
Please, can the TG group person stop sharing their screen so I can project mine? Okay. So in the cybersecurity field, human beings, employees, individuals, they are often considered or referred to as the weakest link in an organization's security. This highlights the idea that despite your robust, advanced technologies and your security measures, human beings are often the most vulnerable points in an organization's overall security posture. There are several factors for this that contributes to this perception, and example is the social engineering attack, which will be my section for the cybersecurity awareness session. So moving on, what are social engineering attacks? Social engineering attacks are a category of cyber attacks that exploit the human psychology, in the sense that attackers manipulate and deceive individuals into revealing sensitive information, personal information, or credit card details online. And these attacks, they do not rely on technical vulnerabilities to be successful. Technical vulnerabilities in the sense of maybe weaknesses or flaws in the design of an organization's overall security, or when an organization is using an unpatched software or a software that is not supported by their producers to host their critical assets, and other technical issues. So social engineering attacks do not rely on those kinds of vulnerabilities to perform a successful attack. In a typical social engineering attack, there are three techniques involved in social engineering attack, which are the prepending, the pretexting, and the clickbaiting. The prepending is a social engineering tactic that involves adding a deceptive or misleading subject line or message at the beginning of an email or message to entice recipients to open and engage with the email. I would explain the objectives of these techniques in the next slide, so let me just run through them briefly. So pretexting is a social engineering tactic where attackers create a fabricated scenario or an elaborate backstory that manipulates individuals into revealing sensitive information or performing security-related mistakes. Clickbaiting basically is just a deceptive technique to lure you into clicking on a link or an attachment which may contain a malware or a spyware. So types of social engineering attacks, we have phishing. Phishing is a type of social engineering attack in which attackers impersonate legitimate entities to deceive individuals via email into revealing sensitive information. And below, we have a typical example of a social engineering attack that is containing the techniques I mentioned in the previous slide. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, this email sample below contains a subject saying urgent security alerts. The major aim of this prepending technique is to provoke your curiosity and fear. Like when you see urgent security alerts now, you want to at least know what's going on or engage with the post and find out what's going on. Let me find out what's going on in this post. So followed by the prepending, we'll have the pretexting technique where the attacker will give a fabricated scenario or stories concerning or trying to make you stories trying to establish your trust, and they're giving a plausible reason for whatever they are requesting for in the email. So here they are saying, this is an example of a social engineering attack from a bank, someone trying to impersonate a bank. So here they are saying, we regret to inform you that your uBanking Core online account has experienced unusual activities to secure your account and prevent unauthorized access. We require your immediate attention. Please take the following steps to verify your account activity. So this now is to give you a good reason for them requesting for your private information. And it contains a link here, which may direct you to the fake websites in order to impute your login credentials or your credit card details. It's even stated in the email that upon clicking the link, you'll be prompted to enter your username and password. This is critical to ensure the safety of your account. Once this process is complete, your account will be protected. So basically what they are trying to get you to do is to click the link and upload your personal information so that you can gain access to your bank login details or your credit card details. And then we have the clickbaiting, which is a link that might contain a malicious software or a spyware, or also take you to the fake websites where you have to impute your details. Yeah, so this is a basic example of a social engineering attack through email. Next, we'll have a smishing attack as an example of a social engineering attack. A smishing is a term that combines SMS with phishing. It refers to a form of social engineering attack that occurs through text messages. So basically, smishing is the same thing as phishing, or they use the same techniques, including clickbaiting and a pretext. trying to get you to at least click their link or give you a good reason to open their link or engage with this text in general. By the right, you have an example of an Apple ID request where the attacker sends a message saying your Apple ID account has been locked due to unauthorized login. Please log in here and verify your information. So in every typical social engineering attack, there's usually a link or an attachment. So most times when you're receiving emails or text messages and you're not sure of the sender, sometimes they can even pose as legitimate individuals where you'll not be able to identify the difference between a false sender and the real sender. So you should always be skeptical about messages or emails containing links and attachments in order to not fall victim for these attacks. If you're not sure of the sender, you try your best to confirm or verify. Let me say if the text is from your HR or your CEO or even your bank, you can call your customer care or your account manager to confirm if they made any request like that for your login credentials or for you to verify your credit card details or things like that. If it's your HR, you can just easily walk to her office and confirm if she sent any message that you're not sure of or any link that you're not sure of. So I'll be moving on to the next type of social engineering attack, which is the phishing attack. Phishing is short for voice phishing. So it's typically a social engineering attack where attackers use phone calls and voice messages to trick individuals into revealing sensitive information. Phishing is also similar to the traditional phishing attack, but this one, it does not involve links. It relies rather on spoken communications to perform these attacks. Two case scenarios of phishing attacks are the one from your bank. I'm very sure many of us have heard or have even received calls like that from scammers asking you to provide them with your credit card details that are from your bank. I know many of us have experienced something like that. Another one is tech support scam, where the attackers will pose as tech supports, claiming that your device has been infected with a form of virus or security issue, and they'll be offering to help you with this. And in the process, they might ask for your login credentials, your emails, and many other sensitive information. And the thing about these social engineering attacks, it might not be immediately that your organization's security is compromised. So they might keep following you up in order to gain your trust. They might not ask for your important or sensitive information at first, but they'll keep following up your device information, your operating system, and different informations like that. And next time when they've noticed that they've built that trust with you, you can move further into asking for your emails and your email passwords and other sensitive or personal informations. So spyware is a malicious software that secretly collects information about a user's online activities, such as websites visited, keystrokes. Spywares can also take records of your online chats. Many of us that use our WhatsApp on our laptop in the office. So spywares can also take records or log of conversations from social media. So basically, spyware monitors your activities on the system. And There's a general means of which spywares are distributed. They can be installed on your device without you knowing, by bundling with legitimate softwares where you download online or through malicious websites or even emails. Because sometimes the links in those malicious emails contains software, malicious softwares also, which could be spywares, basically just for monitoring your activities on your system in order to gain your personal information. It could also be credit card details, and some spywares are even capable of having webcam footage. Like they're also capable of remotely accessing your webcam, which is giving video surveillance, which can give live video surveillance of your face and whatever you're doing at that particular time. And lastly, we have keyloggers, which is short for keystroke logger. It's a type of spyware specifically designed to record and log every keystroke made on your computer or mobile device without your knowledge. This is a type of spyware that is designed only to just record every keystroke you make on your computer, even if it's A or B you're typing, to record everything and send to the attacker's remote server. So in a day, the attacker can have the list of everything you typed into your keyboard, which may include your login credentials, your credit card details, maybe you're paying for something online. Some keystroke loggers are even capable of taking screenshots using particular commands and all of that. And they have the same distribution means. They are distributed through emails, downloads from malicious websites, and all of that. So keyloggers and spywares, they often operate silently without the user's knowledge. So most times it's hard to identify that your laptop is being infected or affected by spywares and keyloggers. So it's usually commonly advised that you update your operating system regularly. You use reputable antivirus softwares, and yes, use reputable antivirus softwares in order to protect your system against spywares and keyloggers. And what else? You can also regularly scan for spywares and keyloggers. And lastly, before Olalikon takes over the webinar, keyloggers and spywares, they can also be for legitimate use. They are not always used by attackers. They can be used by organizations to monitor their activities as their employee, which may be stated in your agreements with them. So spywares and keyloggers also have legitimate uses and illegitimate uses. Illegitimate uses involves the one of personal information theft and login credential theft and the like, basically monitoring your activities on your computer system. So thank you. That's the first chapter of the cybersecurity awareness session. If there are any questions or contributions, I'll take them shortly, maybe 2 to 5 minutes before Olalikon takes over the presentation. Any questions, anybody? Contributions, experiences?
Okay, thank you, Henry. Please, if you have any questions, you can put them on the chat box, or you could just ask them. Thank you.
Can you see my screen? Okay. Hi, Timlay, can I go on, please?
Yes, please. We can see your screen. Lekan.
Okay. So I'll be talking on recognizing and reporting phishing, multi-factor authentication, password best practices and password managers. And mobile device security. So I'll be talking on these 4 domains. So let's kickstart this, starting with the second domain, which is recognizing and reporting phishing. So under this particular domain, my focus will be on describing or going further details with what phishing is, the different types of phishing attacks, and the common phishing tactics, and recognizing a phish and reporting and how to report a phish. Before we delve into the details of this phishing attacks and the tactics and the technique that is being used, there is more reason why this topic is actually very, very common when it comes to cybersecurity. And the reason is because most companies or most businesses will always have adequate security, adequate defense system. But at the end of the day, if you have those firewalls, those defense system, and the people that are going to use the platform, that is the end user, if you don't really have the adequate training or adequate education on how to go about their activities, how to carry out their task, and how to do their daily routines, at the end of the day, they can jeopardize some of these techniques, some of this defense system. That is why it was reported, as you have here on the screen here, you can see by Checkpoint. Checkpoint is a very popular brand when it comes to software and solutions in the world today. Looking at phishing, you see that for 2023, you will see that these are the top 10 companies that are mostly kind of impersonated by adversaries or by people with malicious intent or by hackers. You will see from the list that Microsoft tops the list, and you have Google, Apple, and some other known companies. So what this tells you is just simply that we have several people or adversaries or hackers that mimic some of these companies in order to gain people's vital information, or probably sometimes it might not even them just gaining your vital information. Sometimes once they have a victim and the data or the details or those personal information or sensitive information, they can sell them on the dark web. So sometimes it don't necessarily have to be the hacker using the information. Sometimes they can sell those information too. So if you look at this list now, this is just a statistics from this year. And it means that there's possibly that people are receiving mails from this company, people impersonating Microsoft or Google, that is Gmail or Microsoft Outlook or Apple, because we have enough users in the world today using this platform. So this just gives you some kind of information on what some of these hackers imitate in order to get people's attention, in order to get people's data or private information. it was also reported by Cloudflare too. Cloudflare is also very popular when it comes to hosting of softwares and web applications and solutions. If you look at the previous one I shared, you can see that also Cloudflare is also almost having similar kind of a rank. Microsoft was topping the list of the previous one, and also here on Cloudflare, it was also reported that Microsoft is also one of the most impersonated brands when it comes to phishing attacks and some of these social engineering attacks that we have. But here on the second item on this list, we have the World Health Organization too, and also you also see that Google is also part of. So these are the brands that most of these adversaries, most of these hackers imitate, because they know in one way or the other you have one or two things to do with some of these companies. So, and sometimes they will have done their due diligence very well before sending you a mail, before trying to get to the organization or trying to get to the system. So, and IBM also reported that 95% of the cyber attacks are caused by human error. So this just tells you that if we are not very well informed about some of these techniques, some of these information about adversaries and people with these threat actors now, or hackers that is widely known, that's what they target mostly. Once they know that your defense system is actually very strong, and it is very difficult to actually kind of write programs, the command and control to get into the system. So their best option is the end user, which is us, that we are here. So because they know that most of us don't really have that knowledge or technical know-how of how some of this thing plays out. So that is why it is very essential for people that are going to use the system within the organization, people, you yourself personally, for you to have some cyber hygiene or awareness about some of this information, so as not to fall prey of some of these tactics. And so that is why it is very essential for us to have this understanding of this cybersecurity awareness. So now, going into the main topic now, which is phishing itself. If you look at the word, the phishing and the fish itself, like fishing, it's having the same the same pronunciation, but different spelling. It is actually as a result, the word phishing itself, like the one for cybersecurity now, the one starting with PH, is actually coined from the real fish itself. You know, when you go fishing, you more or less like you cast your net to the river and then or to the ocean, and you're hoping to have to just get anyone that fall prey or any fish that fall prey of whatever within that your net. So fishing more or less was coined from that word fishing itself, like the normal fish that we do eat. And then so talking about fishing, the main aim of fishing is just to gain your personal information. And after gaining those information, probably it could be sold out to people that actually needs that data, or it could be the hacker themselves using those information to carry out their attacks. So that is why it is very, very essential for us to understand this term and know how it works. We have three major types of phishing attacks. We have the phishing itself, which is the general one. We have the spear phishing, and we have the whaling attack. I'll be using this diagram to depict these three attacks of phishing. I said we have a phishing attack, and we have a spear phishing, and we have whaling. And I'm using, if you look at this diagram very well, with the phishing attack, you will see the arrow. So I'm taking that arrow as more or less like the net now. aiming at the fishing in the river. Let's see the river, the case study here. And if you look at this diagram, you see that there are different pictures now that is being used to denote the different type of fish that we have there. So which means that if I send an information out, so I'm just hoping that anyone could fall prey of the attack. So I don't really care. So more or less, let's paint it back to a real life scenario. So if someone send a mail to probably to people living in Lagos, so the attacker does not really care if it gets to someone working with a known bank or someone working with a known tech firm or someone who is just sitting at home or a student. So that is the general phishing. But sometimes you could have a targeted attack to a certain organization. That is when you have the spear phishing, whereby the attacker has done due diligence on the organization before setting out the attack. So it could be ABC company or ABC solution or ABC tech, and the attacker is just looking at how to get into their infrastructure. So that is more or less like a spear phishing. The person will be able to get some vital information, their names, details of what they do, the business they are into. That is what spear phishing is all about. Sometimes it looks very, very real that if you're not very careful, you will 90% of people who receive such mail will actually fall prey of the phishing, of the spear phishing attack. So, and we have the last one, which is the whaling attack. Whaling attack is more or less like a sub of spear phishing. Like you have within your organization, you have your CEO now, just like you have a whale in the ocean as a very big fish too. So whaling attack is more or less like for the big men or for the big women within the organization. So it's more or less like probably the CEO, the financial director, or anyone who is holding vital information within the system. That is what is called whaling attack. So it could take like 2 months, 1 month, or even more for the attacker or the adversary to actually execute the attack on when it comes to the whaling attack. So these are the different attacks that we have when it comes to phishing. So I'm just trying to explain this because sometimes you might be receiving some information, some mails, or someone trying to get at you, and you look at how did this person get to know this. And so most of these attackers, talking from the ethical point of view, they will have done their due diligence about the person or the target before setting out their attack to either the organization or the individual. So to reiterate now, the phishing attack is more or less like the general attack to people. They don't really care. They don't really know you. Sometimes they can just address you as dear sir, dear customer. That is the general one. But the spear phishing attack, they know that you're actually working within that organization. They know that you are working with social firm. They know that this is what you do. And they are actually doing a targeted attack on you. While the whaling attack is the one that's more or less like targeting probably the CEO of that firm or the financial director or whoever is actually holding vital information, the IT director, sometimes it will even be your IT personnel too. So that is a whaling attack. So, and there is always a reason for them doing it. Sometimes you have people like, you call them kiddie. They are just testing out their knowledge. Probably someone who is just getting into cybersecurity is just trying to test his knowledge on what he has actually acquired. So probably some of them might not really know, but we have some that are actually, most of the attackers or the adversaries, they actually doing it for a purpose, either to gain money or either to just show their knowledge, to test their knowledge. And if you're not very careful, your business will be down. And if you have a service or you are rendering a solution, your aim is to have a maximum uptime, is to ensure that people are having access to whatever you are rendering as service to the customers. So you want to be sure that whoever you are having handling some of these critical solutions, critical platforms, they know what they are doing. Both the end user, both the people with your software development, both whoever is having the various departments within your organization. So you want to be sure that they know what they are doing and they're actually well informed about some of these tactics. So I'll move on to the common phishing tactics now. Basically, I just enumerate it here as 4. We have the corny communication, we have the perception of need, we have the false trust, and we have the emotional manipulation. We're just talking about the tactics now that is being used by these adversaries or these tactics. So if you look at this now, let me just use this analogy tool. For corny communication, if you look at this message very well, why this is very corny? Normally, generally, we are all attracted when you see figures. If you look at this message now, you can see that this attacker is actually starting with the salutation with I delay, which is more or less like a spear phishing attack. And you see the figure there, this is almost like 14.5 million naira. Most people will kind of be curious, like you see a message, someone telling you, I need you to process a wire transfer for 14.5 million, which needs to go out today. I have attached the bank details. I will be out of office, but we'll check back later to confirm. Thanks, CEO. So let me just quickly, to be very quick now. The attacker, the aim of this person is just to actually, you see, the key point here is not actually the money there. What the person is actually aiming at is for you to open the attachment. And once you open the attachment, then the rest is history, as they say. There's what is called CC, command and control. There are some processes and operations that go on within your systems, within whatever you do. Sometimes you might not just know that the person might not actually carry out that attack at that time. So as you won't actually quickly detect that, oh, was it this mail that I received yesterday? So someone could be in your system for as long as whatever, for as long as a month, for as long as several weeks before starting the execution. So that is why it's good to have a good reporting system, to have a good security operations center as a business. So as your security team can actually help you with some of all these things. So the aim of this particular communication or this particular mail now is just for this particular, for this individual to click on the attachments. I'll still explain how to actually detect some of all these things because, you know, we can start looking at some of these things and, okay, how do I stop this? How do I not fall prey of some of this communication or some of these mails so that I will know that I'm actually talking to people that are legitimate or the authorized personnel or the authorized, or this mail is actually coming from Babatunde as it's stated here. So as we go on, we'll actually educate ourselves better on this end. So the aim of this particular war now, why this is very corny, is that it's just to get your attention. That is why the money is just, the exaggerated figure is just there. So get your attention. And obviously, if you see 10 to 15 people, if they receive this such mail, I'm very sure 8 to 7 will actually try to look at the attachment or try to open to see, okay, let me even see what this person is talking about. And then, so it means that the CEO is actually known to this person. The daily, who is a worker there, is actually known to this person. So the attacker has actually done the due diligence before sending out the mail. The second one here, which is a perception of need. This is more or less like there is need for you to take an action. You know, I shared earlier on about some of the top most companies that have been impersonated in the world today. Google is one of, I think, 2 or 3 there, because majority of us now, or people, we always have what is it called, Gmail accounts. This is just a snapshot from a fake notification. And if you look at it, if you read the message, it's just trying to tell this particular user to check the activity on his account. And the aim is just for that particular, the recipient now to click on that check activity. And the underlay of this particular button that you see there is not actually going to Google at all. Is redirecting you to the site that has been prepared by the attacker. So that is what you are going to see. You might not really know. So that is this. Some of these actions, some of these acts, they are well crafted because that is what the attackers does for a living. Those who are doing it maliciously. So in fact, people sell some of these what is it called? Popular brands. You could have their interface. You could even build, because some of them, they know how to actually build some of these things. So they can recreate or mimic exact message from these top brands. So this one is just because everybody, if you receive this mail, most people will actually be kind of curious that, oh, who is trying to log into my account? And a signing attempt was blocked. So he's trying to gain your trust there so as to get your action on clicking the check activity. So this is more or less like a perception of need. Sometimes some of us might have received something like this. And then if you have not, just prepare your mind that there's possibility for you to actually be susceptible to some things like this, some actions like this. And we have the next one, which is false and trust. This one is more or less like, why this one is false is because this message is not coming from Office 365. So it is just very clear that the attacker is just trying to mimic Office 365 as a known organization or a popular brand. So whenever a message comes and someone is trying to impersonate a brand, so that is false. It is not actually true because it's not coming from Office 365. And we'll still talk about how you are going to identify some of these things so that you can get yourself aware about how this works. And we have the emotional manipulation, which is also known as amygdala hijack. More or less like talking about a biology kind of whereby people, they send a message to you that in such a way that you act before you think. So instead of you thinking before you act, the message comes to you very sudden, and then you're unable to think. There is a matter of urgency. There is a fear in you to actually act very fast. So this emotional manipulation is one of the best tactics that have actually worked a lot with these adversaries, with these hackers and people with bad intent. So, dear valued customer from we just use a fictitious bank here now, Bamboo Bank. We have received notices that you have recently attempted to withdraw. You can see the way the message is actually coined. So you'll be interested because they are just telling you that they have recently attempted to withdraw a certain amount from your account. If this information is not correct, someone unknown may have access to your account. So as a safety measure, please visit the bank. So at the end of the day, they are just trying to manage your mind, manage your thinking. So if you're not very careful, you actually act before you think. So you should be very much aware whenever you receive a message and it is not something that you've actually done, it is not coming from you. The first thing is to actually calm yourself down and look at it very well. Or you report, if it is within your organization, if you have a team, the security team, there should be a reporting system whereby they can analyze some of these messages. Sometimes it might not really be monetary aspect like this in this case. So now let's look at how we can actually recognize some of these phishing attacks. If you look at this, I am very sure to some extent that if you look at this mail keenly with a very keen look, you will see that there's something odd with the from, which is actually this person sending the information, and the recipient, which is the tool. let me tell you here today, most people, most of these attackers or these hackers, we have what is called a fully qualified domain. That's FQDN, whereby people can register any domain name. So far, you have your money and you have the system, you have the platform there. So if I wake up today, I can just say, okay, thinking like someone who is an attacker now, the person can just try to look at, okay, I am trying to get at so firm, ABC Logistics. And I know that ABC Logistics is having their email. I've done my due diligence now. Their email is probably one of their email is one of their staff is having Adesina at abclogistics.com. So the attacker will look at, okay, how can I craft this mail? How can this person believe that this mail is coming from someone within the group? So the best for that person is to look or to do or to register something that is actually similar to the URL, that's the Uniform Resource Locator, the domain name of such organization. If you look at this from, you will see that one is having CNET at the end, and the toe is having .net. So telling you that it is not coming from the HR at all. This is actually coming from someone outside the organization. But if you're not very careful, you will not know, and you will just go ahead and click on the survey. And most times, it might not be a link opening to your page. It is not covered in this course or in this awareness. Sometimes when you download Microsoft Word or Microsoft Office applications, we have what is called a macro virus. A macro virus, it is something that can be attached to Microsoft applications like Microsoft Word, spreadsheets, and the popular applications that we use on a daily basis on our systems. So there is a way you can exploit, there is a way attackers can exploit or can do a command and control on some of these applications. So sometimes when you receive a mail like this, you can just hover on that survey so that the link can show at the bottom left of your screen. From there, you can actually get to know where this thing is taking you to. So you have an idea of the link or the web address before clicking on the survey, before because most people will actually just think that this is actually coming from my HR, so I don't need to be doing any check on it. But if you look at it very well, you see that the URL from the sender and the recipient is actually different, totally different, but very alike if you look at it with a very with rapt attention. So these 7 parameters that we have here, we have the from, which is the first one. We have the to, which is the second one. We have the date. Sometimes you can actually check when the mail is coming. Sometimes you see that some of these attackers can be working. Sometimes you might not really take note. Someone who is trying to steal might not really take note of everything or covering up all his traces. So some of them might be sending these messages in odd hours. So probably they can be coming from different countries with a different time zone within your country. Someone sending a mail from probably India or a country that is not having a time zone with Nigeria. So sometimes you actually can also look at the date too and see. And also sometimes you look at the subject of the message too. It could be something that they can do it in such a way that it is sometimes very crafty in order to get your attention. And then the message too, the tone of the message and the outlook of. So these things that I've highlighted here and the attachments. These are the things you look out for. Major thing is, are you taking an action on that mail? And once an action is being taken, that is when they are getting to you. If you open a mail, nothing is happening. They can't get to you. Nobody can see anything by opening a mail that you just received. So even if it's coming from someone with bad intent, you can opening a mail does not do anything on your system, does not do anything to you. But taking an action, that is where the work is. That is where the action, That is where the command and control, whatever they're doing, the privilege escalation, getting to know about the organization. Sometimes the attacker might just be there just to know more about the system, about you yourself, or trying to steal your. Every time it's not all about money. Sometimes it could just be that you just want to get some information. Sometimes it might just be that you just want to monitor what the person is doing on his or her mobile devices or critical systems. So these are the things that you need to look out for, to check, and before taking an action. I have here reporting a phish now. If you have your Microsoft Outlook, there is a system there that is already in place. Once you open the mail, you can just click on the 3 dotted lines that is almost always at the top right corner on your screen, or probably on your mobile phone or your smartphone. Then you click on reports. You have the context menu appearing where you have the junk or report phishing. So once you do this, the Microsoft teams, the security, Microsoft is a very big organization, and they have a very robust security techniques and mechanism. So once you report this, they know what to do by blacklisting the IP of the sender's address, so that you don't receive such mail again. So you can just do your own action by just, once you know, or once it has been reported, probably you don't have a security team within your organization, you can just report the mail, then the action will be taken on that particular mail. So this is just a simple way to just report phishing for if you are using the Microsoft email. And if you are using, same applies to Gmail too. Once you click on the horizontal, 3 dotted lines at the top right corner, so you see there, you can just report. When you report a spam, it's totally different from when you report a phishing. That phishing is more, they take that more seriously than the one for spam, because spam mails sometimes could just be a marketing mail. But phishing mail is mainly for fraudulent actions or fraudulent activity. Sometimes you could receive a mail in your spam and the mail is actually legit in some cases. But while you are receiving, I think we'll talk about that later in the slide, the reason why some mails drop on your spam and then not your actual inbox. So this is how to report for Gmail. And for Yahoo Mail, same applies, but I think for Yahoo Mail, instead of there's a way you can report directly to their, to the mail that they've provided. Is a little bit different from Gmail, and I think majority of us, or majority of the organizations or firms, use Gmail and Microsoft Outlook largely. So I think if you look at the numbers, I'm not sure people are still, or we have more users on Yahoo Mail, but for those that are still using it, that is just or you click on that's 3 dotted line, the dotted lines too, and then you click on, instead of phishing for the Gmail and Microsoft Outlook, they don't really have that yet. So you can still do that via the spam option. And for some of us, or some of the organizations that are still using the conventional, webmail, that is the cPanel. cPanel is not actually, they've not done a lot when it comes to security. That is why for businesses that are still using webmail, it is highly likely that you will be receiving enough or a lot of these phishing mails, because they don't really have a system there that can actually, more or less like AI now, doing the logical work for you, so that you don't receive more of these phishing emails. So for this webmail, you can just report to their link that they've provided. Sometimes could be very stressful doing this often, but the one for Microsoft and Gmail, I think that one is very, very much more convenient for people to actually report. But for those using a webmail, they can just do this by reporting to the anti-phishing working group. It's a global industry. more or less like a law enforcement organization for webmail or people using cPanel. Now, sometimes I was talking about in the other slide that there's possibility for you not to be receiving these phishing mails or these messages from these hackers or these attackers. When you have a very good system in place, when you have a very good structure, I'm talking about the security architecture now. Apart from you, the end user, trying to identify that, oh, this is a phish, this mail is not legit. Normally, you should have a system in place that should help you to do some of this work, some of this tedious work, to identify that, oh, this mail that is about to drop inside your inbox, it is actually not legit or coming from someone with malicious intent. You see, when you don't receive much of this phishing attack, for people that have not really experienced it, what is actually working is this authentication techniques that you are seeing on your screen. These techniques, these authentication records or these authentication methods, they are the backbone when it comes to the logical way of preventing against phishing or any malicious mails dropping into your inbox. It is mostly set up by your security team within your organization. And if you are using your normal Gmail account, Gmail that's the end user now, they do this for their end users too. They ensure that the right mail is the one dropping on your inbox, to your inbox. And then probably anyone that they are not very sure of will drop under your spam mail. The first one we have here is the SPF. Then we have Echem and we have DMARC. SPF is sender policy framework. And we have the Echem, which is domain keys integrity mail. And we have the DMARC, which is domain-based monitoring, message authentication, reporting, and conformance. You see this 1 and 2, they work in tandem, they work together. While this DMARC is more or less like the chief there, the SPF and the Echem, they are the ones that they have two parameters, either pass or fail. You know, there was a time I was saying you report. Sometimes you can report a mail to your security personnel within the organization. What the person will do is to check these parameters and this authentication record. So this SPF is more or less like the sender policy framework is more or less like a body or an organization that is more or less like they have list of valid IP addresses that they have into their system, more or less like the Echem too. So they check if this mail that is actually about to drop or that this person is about to send is actually coming from a legitimate domain. So that is the essence of the SPF and the Echem. That is what they do behind the scene. That is why most cases, if you have a very good structure, you won't be receiving more of these phishing attacks. If you have a very good SPF, the Echem and the DMARC system in place. And sometimes when you see a mail dropping under your spam, what is actually doing the work there is the DMARC. DMARC is there to actually do the reporting, what is it called? The reporting for you, because as the name implies, domain-based message authentication, reporting, and then conformance. So all this comes together when you have a mail server. So it now depends on how robust or how secured your mail server is. So most of these solutions, we have them already with some of these known or popular brands. That is why they keep on improving on their SPF, their the DMARC techniques, adding AI to it so that they are able to detect very fast if a mail is actually coming from a malicious IP address or not. So this authentication, they are the they are the one that do the behind the scene for you. You don't really see that, oh, I'm not receiving. They are doing. They will be the one to. It's more or less like they are doing the blacklisting and the whitelisting. They allow, they disallow, more or less like your firewall. So, if we go, we can actually talk about this for a whole day. The way this works. That's for the SPF, the Echem and the DMARC techniques. But I just want you to know that these are the authentication records or techniques that carry out some of these background what is it called? Background checks on your IP addresses. Because when you are sending a mail, you are being attached to an IP address and a mail server. So if I am sending a mail as a person or an individual, as Adesina or Lekan, I'm actually attached to a domain, which is probably ABC Limited or ABC or Z Limited or Z Logistics. So Z Logistics is having a domain. That domain probably named that as zlogistics.com. So, and I personally, the end user now, additional at zlogistics.com. So that's my identity will be attached. If it is, once it's created, it will be attached legitimately to the SPF and the Echem framework so as to mark or to register the email address. So anyone, any other user or any other attacker or malicious personnel or adversary trying to imitate or trying to impersonate that email, the SPF, a working SPF should be able to detect, or the Echem should be able to detect that, oh, this is not from a legitimate source based on my record, because it's more or less like a record. It's more or less like you have, let me paint it more now in a real life scenario. Let's say you have a business and people working with, let's say within Nigeria now we have CAC. And let's say for registered business, you go to CAC to register your business. So if you, CAC is having a platform whereby there's a way you can actually check to know that, yes, this ABC Logistics is actually coming from, is actually a registered business. And they know the source, the identity of this organization and this entity to be legitimate. They have not reported this business for any malicious or fraudulent act before. So they will check that record to see. So there is a record there for CSC. I'm just assuming now if they should. So there's a record there for you to check. That's what the SPF and the Echem is doing. They are more or less like the AI there doing the background work for you, so as not to be getting malicious mails from people across the globe, because billions of mails are sent every day just to get people's attention. So that is for the email authentication and the techniques that is being used. So I'll move on to multi-factor authentication and password best practices and password managers. Multi-factor, as the name implies, is more or less like you are using two or more authentication factors. We know I'm very sure we are very familiar with 2FAs, two-factor authentication. So this is just more to kind of reiterate on the multi-factor, how essential it is for you to have a multi-factor authentication on some of your platforms, so as to be very sure that you are actually being secured for someone trying to gain access to your account. So multi-factor is more or less like use of two or more authentication factors to prove a user's identity. So basically, multi-factor or two-factor authentication is basically behind 5 factors, which is the knowledge, ownership, characteristics, and location and action. The first one that you have here, knowledge, is like something you know, like your password, your PIN, whatever you use, like an identity, like your username and password. They are something that is within your brain. That is a form of authentication. And you have your ownership, which is something you have, something very similar to like your token. or your key fob, something that you can actually press. It generates one-time password, OTP, for you. Then you input those pins before authorization. That is more or less like something you own, because the OTP was actually given to you by probably a firm or probably a bank, probably a system. So it is denoted as something you have. So it's a form of authentication. And the third one, which is something you are, is more or less like biometrics, something that we can use to identify that this is actually this person, probably fingerprint, your iris, your um, voice recognition that we have on mobile phones. And you know that this third one is actually, it has a lot of, it's actually very difficult actually to break in when you use some of these the characteristics now. That's the something you are technique as a part of your authentication. It is very difficult for you to imitate or to impersonate fingerprints, or more or less like your the voice recognition and things like that. So it's a form of authentication to ensure that you have the right person actually having access to the system. Then we have the location. When you have like your MDM, some policies in place within the organization, there are ways in which you can ensure that or enforce that people only log in or have access to a resource within certain geographical coverage. So there's a way you can have those authentication to that. The location matters too. So, and we have some infrastructure or some systems that you want to limit the areas where people can have access to, or the areas where the users can actually gain or request for access or request for resource. So it's a form of authentication too, and can be added to. So when you mix one or two together, that is when you have a multi-factor. Not when you have a username, password, you also have a PIN. That is not multi-factor. It is when you mix one together with three or one together with five. The fifth one, which is action, is more or less like something you do, like probably you have a signature pattern, the way you write, the way you work. We have systems in place. There are some data centers that has some of this type of authentication method, that it is by the time you are approaching that system or the door or the entrance of the infrastructure, it is a very expensive authentication technique to implement. So it is for mostly top firms or top organization, whereby your pattern, the way you work, or probably the way you sign, is actually being used as the method of authentication. So nobody signs or nobody walks the way that person walks, or nobody talks the way the person. So that's more or less like action, something you do is actually implemented, not very common to end users. The one that is very common to us that we use on a daily basis is the knowledge, the ownership, and probably the biometrics, and maybe a few of location. So, but within the organization, 4 and 5 are very common within top firms or firms that knows what they are doing when it comes to security, or that takes security as a big deal. So we have the next, that takes me to authentication models. You know, I was talking about you mixing one or two authentication methods together. Talking about the models, model is more or less like probably like a pattern in which you can use to implement some of the previous mentioned what is it called, authentication techniques that I've mentioned. That is something you do, the something you know, your password, something you do like your the way you sign, your something you are like your fingerprints, your biometrics generally. So we have the context aware, we have the single sign-on, we have the federated identity management. I won't really go deep into this. This one is more or less like the models that is being used. The context aware gives you like the opportunity to, before someone is having access to your resource, to your system as a firm. This one talks more for businesses now. Before someone is having access to your critical system, probably you have a financial platform that is being used for payment or something that holds vital information. So this context aware can be used. So it's more or less like before someone is given access, it compares the attributes, it checks based on what you have set, like parameters, the attributes and the characteristics to check prior to giving you access to that system. So these things are not just theory, they are practical implementation that can help you to ensure that people who are having access are the right person, and someone who is trying to kind of gain access without following due process will actually be masked out from the system. So that is what context aware is doing. And we have the single sign-on. Single sign-on, I think some of us can relate with this. Single sign-on is more or less like, instead of you signing several times on several applications. Let me use a case study for Microsoft. Probably you have Microsoft Office 365. Once you sign in with your email account, with your email system, probably any other resources provided by Microsoft, you might not really need to sign in again. A ticket will be given to you. Not you, I'm talking about the background operation and the way it works. So instead of you signing into probably, let's say you sign into your Outlook mail, instead of you going, you want to access you have to have access to Office now and the Word documents or PowerPoint or some other resources. So you don't have to sign in often again. So that's single sign-on. It's more or less like you have once you sign in once, then you have access to any other resources within that system. Single sign-on. And it's also similar to OpenID, though that's not mentioned here. OpenID, like sometimes when you have access to a platform, instead of you start registering afresh on that platform, they will tell you that, oh, you can actually sign using your Gmail account. You can sign in using your Facebook account. They will just use this popular brand. You call it Open Identity or Open Authentication. So instead of you have something like an attestation that comes to you, like you accept, you click that this person, Google can share your user registration with this firm. So all these are more or less like authentication models that is being used within some of these platforms to ensure authentication, integrity, and confidentiality of some of these. And we also have federated identity management authentication. This one is also similar to what is it called? Single sign-on, but it's more proprietary system or solution that is being implemented. So just like you have a single identity within organization in a federation, federation they're talking about here is like probably you have a business or a company with several branches or with several subsidiaries now. So you could implement the FIDM model in authentication and techniques or method when you are. So that is for the FIDM, the single sign-on, and then the context-aware model. So it's just any of it. It depends on the peculiarity now. It depends on the organization that determines the type of model to use in this case. So that takes me to password best practices and password managers. And I'll just quickly run through this so that we can have more time for questioning. And so talking about password best practices and password managers. It's very difficult for us to memorize passwords. And in most cases, you will see that majority of us, we keep on using the same password across our platforms. Probably you have like 5 to 10 critical systems that you always have access to carry out your task, to do your daily activities, your bank applications, your business platforms. And so we see that most people, instead of having different passwords, because they don't really have that time to memorize password, they just use the same password across. So that is where the issue of a password manager comes in. But password managers has its own kind of limitation, because we'll talk about that later in this slide so as to get idea of the password manager. So yeah, we are recommending the 4 best practices of password to you. If you have the option of using a pass phrases now, rather than using just password, I think that is kind of very much better than just using the conventional password. because phrases can give you the opportunity to at least set something that you can easily recollect. Let me give you an example here. Like you have this now. This is something you can relate with, and you just know where, if you have the option within your system to create a passphrase. I think it's mostly common with Microsoft or Gmail. You can have your password in this format. Instead of just having password with your normal 6 characters and 7 characters. If phrases is being implemented or as an option, this is far more better and very difficult for someone to brute force or to hack into, because it is very long and you can easily add special characters and you can easily familiarize with it. So rather than mixing special characters and numbers, and getting 6 string or 6 characters and making something meaningful out of it is very difficult. But with a phrase, you can easily get something that you can relate with, like, I am glad my password is a good one. You can see the way it's been written here. So, and this is actually a pass phrase that is being used in this case. So we recommend, if you have the option, you should have it being implemented, and it's actually very best to use instead of just using the normal password. And for the password manager, I'll just quickly talk about the password manager. Just like you have something, a password manager is just like more or less like a big purse or a big box that is managing your passwords. And I know most people mistook password managers to the one that always pops up when you on your Google, what is it called? That you see the prompt telling you, do you want to save this password? That is not a password manager. The one that you see like a prompt that appears on your Google Chrome or whatever browser you're using, that is more, those ones are just saving within your browsers and they are done in plain text. But when you use a password manager, it is left to you to pick the option. It is not kind of mandatory, but it's for people that cannot actually memorize their passwords or cannot keep track of, or cannot just have that in their head, keeping password. That is when password managers comes into place. And when you have a password manager, it helps you. But before you start, once you are about to fill the form, it pops up by itself if it is being done properly. I think I have one here that I'm going to use as a case study. We have a Norton password manager. Norton is a very popular brand when it comes to antivirus. And this one is actually free to some extent to implement. And you have to be very careful too on when choosing your password manager, so as you are not patronizing someone who is actually, when someone is advertising a password manager to you and they are telling you that, oh, because there's something called master key. The password manager is like a vault, keeps your passwords. And then the master key is the one that locks the passwords that you have kept within that password manager. So you have a master key that opens all other passwords. And once you misplace your master key or you're unable to recollect, there is no way you can actually recover except probably you have a 2-factor authentication to it. Nobody can actually help you with that, because as soon as you have a master key, it is encrypted. And even the provider of the password managers cannot do that for you. So if anybody is telling you that we can actually recover the key for you, and it means that they're actually having access to your plain text. And so if you see this is more or less like an example, a typical example of not in a password managers, whereby you have your vault, you create your password, it encrypts your data, you have the platform to help you manage this thing. So you could have your security team or whoever is handling or that has a technical know-how on how this works. So this is basically for people, not for everyone. For me personally, I don't use password managers because I can keep track of my passwords. But for people that can't keep track of their password, rather than saving your password to your browsers, that could be actually exposed to attackers, it's very good for you to actually find one of these best password managers to implement. And that is kind of more secure than having your password saved on your browsers. So it helps with the confidentiality of your passwords, and it makes you to have, and the password managers can also help you to, it can also, sometimes when you're about to create an account, the password manager can also give you an idea of the type of password that is very strong on that platform. So they could help you mix, the password manager can help you mix characters together and letters and alphanumeric to make your password very strong. So it's a very good thing to have if you are the type that you can't really memorize your passwords, and rather than just keeping it on your notes, or you are writing a password with probably somewhere that anyone can have access to. So the best thing you can do, so rather than having your password written somewhere that could be could get lost, or someone could have access to it unintentionally, then it's best good you have a password manager. And the last one here is mobile device security, which is more or less like how we can ensure that majority of us, or most of us, either we have one or two mobile devices within us: a smartphone, a tab, and a laptop, desktop, and whatever devices you have that is kind of mobile to you. It could be a smartwatch too. So, and then you know that adversaries or people or could get, because it's what we use on a daily basis. People, these adversaries or hackers, they tend to believe that, okay, we have enough people, or people who always have access to their phones, at least on a daily basis. They will do one or two things. That is why mobile device security is actually very critical. You might have a very good what is it called, phishing techniques, phishing knowledge, but sometimes if you are not having a good security in place for your mobile devices as a business, or as is within your system, you might not really know, or that someone is actually either spying on you, or trying, or exfiltrating some of your data, or trying to wait until it's right time for them to act. So we have here the best practices for mobile device and security. Just like we have explained, well, I would just like to reemphasize on authentication now. Whatever you have on your phone, you should always have a way to make sure that your phone, if you're not using it, or your laptop, if you are idle with, if it's not in use, it is always locked, or your server room, or your server system, or your critical infrastructure. So you must always ensure that you have your authentication enabled in one way or the other. So now depends on you, the type of authentication method, the type of authentication techniques that you have implemented. And then just like you have a password manager, that could be very vital too, or very key too, for your mobile phones. So you could have your password manager, like your Norton password manager, or some other products too, which are very good for you to manage your password, rather than just writing them in paper or pen or books. And you can always run your updates. When you have updates being pushed out, probably from Play Store, from iOS, or from whatever platform you have, from Linux operating system. Let's say you have a system that is running Linux operating system. They have their repository where they release updates and platforms and patches for their softwares. So whenever an update is out, ensure that you do the update as immediate as possible, because whenever they give an update, it is because there's possibility for someone to exploit a vulnerability on that resource, either an application or the device itself. They are not just giving the update out just for you to just update. There's a reason for the updates to come, for them pushing out the update to you. So sometimes it could come like a push, they call it a push notification. You see it from that's for your mobile phones now. You see it dropping like a notification for you, like, okay, update your phone, update your, what is it called, the operating system now, or the application. So whenever you have it, please always just do the right thing by updating your application and avoid public Wi-Fi. The reason why you 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 need to be very careful with Wi-Fi that are actually very free is because an attacker can actually read some of your data. So if I am on the same network as you, and you are doing some vital information, and there's a way I can actually be spying on some of your activity. There are several applications, there are several softwares, there are several ways in which that can be done, which is actually very practical. It's not just a matter of you just avoiding public Wi-Fi. It is actually very real. It is actually very um, serious that people can actually check or spy on what you're doing on a Wi-Fi that is actually public to the public, or that is actually not encrypted. So be very careful with the Wi-Fi you connect to before carrying out some critical or some very confidential practices. The fifth one here is to enable remote lock. Mostly this one is working together with number 7, and it's mostly majorly for organization that has what is it called? Organization that have mobile device management system in place, or mobile. The MDM I have there on number 7 is mobile device management and mobile application management. We have systems in place or solutions in place that can help you to manage your mobile devices. It's more or less like before you give a device to an employee, there is a way you can actually do some onboarding process to that device, to the way you onboard people to or new staff within the organization. So the mobile device management will help you so that probably you have a device and someone or it got missing or stolen. The MDM can help you to remotely wipe the system. So instead of you just be kind of skeptical or be thinking of how to get those information back, or how to ensure that the person is not breaking into the system and ensuring that it's having access. So the MDM or the MAM, they are there to help you to manage your device. It can help you with your remote lock. It can help you with the onboarding process. It can even help you to actually limit the application that can be run on some of these systems. So if you don't want a device to run certain application, you can blacklist. That is why the MDM is there. So, and it's very essential for organization to have them in place. It's very, it helps to manage their devices, mobile devices. So that is the MDM, and the cloud backups too. The MDM too can also help you with that. Or if you are using your mobile devices, like the one you have yourself, that's your personal devices, you ensure that you have your critical files backed up, so as should in case you miss your file or you want to kind of retrieve some of the critical applications. So these are some of the things that can help you to manage your mobile devices. I think in some other series, we are still going to look more into detail to MDM and MAM, that's the mobile application management and mobile device management, because it is a whole lot on its own as regards managing your mobile devices. That is when we talk about the practical implementation of your BYOD, that's bring your own device, and then company-owned personally enabled devices, the COP, and the rest too. So these are some of the practices that we should all kind of imbibe and kind of get acquainted to, so that we can be very safe online. I think I'm going to stop here and hold on for anyone if there are questions. So similarly,
Thank you very much, Olalekan. That was quite informative. I don't know if anyone has any questions for Olalekan while we wait for questions, suggestions, inputs, anything.
So if there are no question, I think probably you can just drop a mail. So if anyone has anything or any question or any further
Okay, so I'll be putting on the chat box Lekan's email address. So you can reach out to me if you have any questions after now. Thank you very much, everyone. I believe this email is correct.
yes, very correct.
Okay. So thank you everyone for trying. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day.